Please join us in saying,
Life is a gift for which we are grateful. We gather in community to celebrate the glories and the mysteries of this great gift.
Hi, and welcome to Worship with First Church. My name is Chris Holton-Jablonski, and it is my great joy and my deep honor to serve First Church as its minister, and to welcome you to another wonderful worship service, especially wonderful this week because we have lots of wonderful guests. We'll be celebrating the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, which is really wonderful organization, and welcoming Mary Catherine Morn, who's the director there and is a wonderful colleague, and the work they do is so incredible. We'll be hearing about that today. Be invitations to join. You can go to uusc.org. My family are members and are so grateful for the incredible work that UUSC does in the wider world. So we're in for a treat. And in addition, before we get going, wanted to lift up just a couple more things that are happening later today. Usually you'll probably be getting this on the 16th. There's going to be a financial town hall at 11. Links to that is in the email that probably brought you this, also in the Unitarian and all over the website and other communications. This is an opportunity to hear from the finance committee, members of the board, to look at the budget and talk about the financial health of the congregation, which is really thriving and wonderful. Thank you all so much. So do please come today. And then there's 3 other follow-up events if you either want to do a deeper dive into any of this information or if you weren't able to come today. So all of that information, again, is in the email and lots of the announcements. It'll be great to have you there. All of the folks in finance have been doing such a wonderful job between our stewardship team and the finance committee and the endowment folks. It's been a really wonderful effort from so many people this year. So come and celebrate all their good work and all of your wonderful generosity. The other thing is later today, again on the 16th, we have the last for this season of First Church Cooks. This is very possibly the best idea that came out of the pandemic, and it's going to be hosted by Jody and Mark, and there's going to be some vegetable enchiladas, so that should be really wonderful. And thank you so much to Jane Manassian and everybody who made that such a wonderful series of events. We'll be continuing that on into the future after the summer, but today will be the last one. So that's First Church Cooks. Again, the link and other information is in the calendar and in the email that brought you this service. And then a little bit further down the road, but really wonderful, we'll have a community music program event on Friday the 21st in the evening. Stay tuned for more details. But this year, lots of our children's music program and youth music program participants got a little creative, and we're going to be having a cabaret where we'll be hearing and experiencing a bunch of their good work. And Ian has been working so hard this year, just gone above and beyond with flexibility and creativity. And this is another great opportunity to celebrate and come together and hear some of the good work from folks in the music program, all children and youth. So again, that'll be Friday the 21st, and stay tuned for more details. And as always, lots of other wonderful stuff going on. And as always, thank you so much for the gift of your attention. And so now, come, let us worship together.
The Common Good by the Reverend Kathleen McTeague. We breathe the common wind of the earth, no matter where we live, who we love, what language we speak. We drink the common water of the earth, no matter our race, how long we live, the coverings we use to drape our forms. We walk the common paths of the earth, no matter our beliefs, how far we are from home, the gold we carry, or its lack. May we live from these truths, our hearts open to the holiness all around us, and our hands turned always toward the common good.
Gonna lay down my sword and shield down by the riverside, down by the riverside, down by the riverside. Gonna lay down my sword and shield down by the riverside. Gonna study war no more. I ain't gonna study war no more. I ain't gonna study war no more. Ain't gonna study war no more. I ain't gonna study war no more. I ain't gonna study war no more. Ain't gonna study war no more. Gonna lay down my burden down by the riverside, down by the riverside, down by the riverside. I'm gonna lay down my burden down by the riverside. Gonna study war no more. I ain't gonna study war no more. I ain't gonna study war no more. Ain't gonna study war no more. I ain't gonna study war no more. I ain't gonna study war no more. Ain't gonna study war no more. Gonna shake hands around the world, everywhere I roam, everywhere I roam, everywhere I roam. Gonna shake hands around the world, everywhere I roam. Gonna study war no more. I ain't gonna study war no more. I ain't gonna study war no more. Ain't gonna study war no more. I ain't gonna study war no more. I ain't gonna study war no more. Ain't gonna study war no more.
Hello. Today I want to tell you a story about how the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, or UUSC, began. It all started over 80 years ago when Unitarians in the United States were watching what was happening in Europe, and they were getting very worried. They were worried because a man named Hitler and the people he was leading, called the Nazis, were becoming very powerful and hurting a lot of people. The Nazis believed some very mean and wrong things. They believed the only people who were any good were people who were just like them. They wanted everyone to be the same as they were, and if you weren't, well, they would kick you out of your house, they would take all of your things, they wouldn't let you work, and eventually, they started killing people who they thought were different from them. Jewish people, gay people, people with disabilities, all of them were targets of the Nazis during this time. It was very scary. What do you think you would do if you saw something like this happening? Would you want to help? Would people in your UU community want to help too? It was the same over 80 years ago. The Unitarians wanted to help people in Europe who were being targeted by the Nazis. So, a Unitarian minister and his wife from Wellesley, Massachusetts, Waitstill and Martha Sharp, went to Europe to see how they could help people there. They found lots of ways to help when they got there, but they had to be creative because the Nazis were always watching, and it would be dangerous if they got caught. The Sharps helped get the paperwork people needed to escape to safer places. Sometimes they would even sneak people past guards wearing disguises. They also helped people, including kids like you, get food and clothing in a time when it was very hard to find both. The Sharps were very brave, but they didn't do this work alone. They worked with people in the Jewish communities in Europe. They worked with the other Unitarians in the United States who sent them money and other supplies so more people could be helped. That is how the Unitarian Service Committee, now called UUSC, got started. Today, UUSC still works around the world to help people who are being treated badly find safety and have their human rights respected. We work with migrant communities who fled their homes in Central America and are seeking asylum in the United States. We work with Rohingya Muslims in Burma who are facing inhumane treatment and displacement by their government. We work with people around the world whose home communities are threatened by climate change, and many more. Both back then and today, UUs come together through the UU Service Committee to work with people who need it most. And we will continue to be there to help in the future, because Unitarian Universalists believe in doing what we can to make the world a better and safer place for everyone. Thank you for the ways you help us do this work. We couldn't do it without everyone joining together. Thank you for listening to this story.
This is the time in our service where we invite forward an offering to help support the good work of the church and our partners in the wider world. All month long, our offerings will be shared with the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, the wonderful organization we're hearing about today. And you can make your offerings online. Here you go, fancy sign. So you can just text the word offering to 617-819-8168. And that'll text you back, and then that'll bring you to a place where you can make an online offering. And again, all month, all of our online offerings will be shared with the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, who does incredible work in the wider world. So all of your generosity is deeply appreciated.
In the late 1970s, I had the great pleasure of singing in the Penn State University Glee Club, whose director, Bruce Trinkley, was also a composer and professor of composition at the university. In 1976, Bruce wrote the music for a special musical that celebrated the bicentennial of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And of all the music in the show, Bruce Trinkley was particularly pleased and proud with both the music and the message of this piece of music we're about to do. And in observation of Juneteenth, last year, 2020, almost 50 years later, he attaches this message when he puts a clip of the Glee Club singing this piece on YouTube. Bruce writes, "Today the text is more relevant than ever. May it give you some solace and hope in these challenging times. Take care of each other."
My father planted justice, wrote the law in lines of gold that said we all are equal and that no one shall be sold. But he never lived to see his harvest fully grown. So we must bend our shoulders to his harvest home. My mother planted courage and watered it with tears. She willed it to her children to nurture through the years. On a wagon rolling west, she gave her children birth. So we must match her spirits to deserve our mother's earth. Blow it and shake the trees. Come and sweet summer rain. Sweep across the plain, there's a harvest coming new. Our parents planted freedom and worked to make it green. They tried to give us something the world had never seen. But they're not here anymore. freedom we must harvest on our own.
It's been a week filled with signs of new life, of growth, of possibility. I'm sure you've seen them too. I have had to learn how to survive April in Boston since moving here from the South several years ago. And like they say, my experience of spring here is building character, teaching me patience, and perhaps giving me a finer eye for the subtle signs. This season also is bringing signs of recovery in the form of growing access in this country to coronavirus vaccines, and a shift that resembles, may it be so, a commitment to the common good from our leaders as they undo some of the harm created by the previous administration. All of these signs, of course, are not uncomplicated. I heard a wonderful Easter sermon this year that has shifted the way I am experiencing the signs of change. My friend and colleague Jay Leach offered a reminder that we also need to be looking for signs of new life and change that make us uneasy. Jay invited us to consider Easter as an invitation to courageous connection, which is another way to say love, which, when truly courageous, inevitably results in the upending of our assumptions, our comfortably held understandings. Make no mistake, he preached, if we are seeking true liberation, it will require much of us, especially those of us with economic, social, racial, gender, and other forms of privilege. I was grateful for Jay's Easter admonition and for the call he gave us to hear new stories, the stories of people whose experiences, whose lives are radically different from our own. I've tried to take that to heart, and it gives me strength for the work we do here at UUSC, and it resonates with what we are trying to do. As most of you know, UUSC for 80 years now has been working for human rights around the globe, partnering with grassroots organizations addressing injustice, inequity, the climate crisis, displacement, and for the last year, of course, the devastating effects of the global pandemic. But that isn't the whole story I want to share. In fact, the story for today begins and ends with imagination and courage from UUSC's grassroots partners who are creating change and bringing justice to the communities they serve. At UUSC, we have learned that enduring solutions to the crises of violence, inequity, climate change, and displacement always rise up from the communities that are facing these challenges. With the help of our members, with your help, we support these solutions through funding, through convenings that create connections, through advocacy on the domestic and international front, with participatory research and strategic communication. Today, the work of our partners focuses on climate-forced displacement, crisis response, and migrant justice. While these initiatives may seem unrelated at first glance, they are, of course, intricately interconnected. These issues are about the right to security within our own homes, the right to restore our homes when they are ravaged by natural or human-made disaster, and the right to seek new homes elsewhere. UUSC's work for human rights around the world is grounded in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and our Unitarian Universalist principles. And we like to say also on the fundamental and non-negotiable dignity and power of all people, which calls us to courageous connection. If we lived in full and vivid awareness of our connections with each other, how different the world would be. I forget every day, but I am grateful for the reminders to ask myself to watch for new life, new connections, a new way forward. The connection that I might be missing, or the story that I am turning away from, because these always are the places where liberation is stirring. Just weeks before the pandemic was declared, I was in Myanmar and Malaysia visiting some of UUSC's grassroots partners who are working for the liberation and safety of the Rohingya people. For 40 years, the government in Burma has subjected the Rohingya people to inhuman persecutions and genocide. The campaign of hate against the Rohingya, encouraged by the Buddhist monks, has resulted in nearly 1 million people forced to flee or held in camps in the country. In 2017, over 250 Rohingya villages were destroyed by the military, leaving unknown tens of thousands dead. The military's brutality was well known before the events of the last few months. Most memorable during our time was our visit to Sittwe on the western coast of Burma. This view from my hotel gives you a taste of the natural beauty of the place. The natural beauty, though, tells only a part of the story of Sittwe and Rakhine State. Rakhine State is home to many of the hundreds of villages that were destroyed by the army just 3 years before our visit. We spent only one day there, carefully moving about so as not to draw too much attention to ourselves. The organizations we work with are targeted for their work. We spent the morning visiting partners, including sitting in on a civic education class of young adults, part of the wonderful work UUSC is helping to fund. It was a mixed group, ethnically and religiously, a rare opportunity for young people in Burma to build community and learn together in a diverse cohort. For lunch, our host drove us to a beachfront spot. He and his colleagues brightened as they shared the traditions of seafood and outdoor dining. Our time together over lunch was intimate and authentic and joyful, a time of peace and connection. Over the fish soup, our partners shared the fierce vision they hold of a world with equity and justice for all. One of them shared stories from activism that had led to 5 years as a political prisoner. I know that many in Burma are imprisoned again today. I pray for their safety and the power of their vision. We also found a courageous and fierce vision among our partners in Malaysia, home to almost 200,000 Rohingya refugees. There, UUSC partners with the Rohingya Women's Development Network. They are providing support, education, and advocacy for this massive refugee community. Fatima is one of the teachers at RWDN. She's the woman on the left in the flowered hijab. I've thought of her many times since our visit. She was lucky to escape Burma, but she'd rather be home. I thought it must be a great blessing to have UN refugee status, but in fact, it means very little. Working is not permitted, children aren't allowed to attend schools, and actually just walking on the street makes one vulnerable to harassment by police. Still, in the face of all of this, Fatima and her colleagues are building community, providing skills and civic education for other Rohingya women, and in these ways and others are helping to imagine and create a world where they are free to enjoy the rights that most of us give little thought to. One of the sadnesses Fatima and her colleagues shared was the difficulty of reaching family who are still in Burma. The communication blackouts were making it difficult to be in touch, even then. That was before the pandemic and before the February 1st military coup. I can only imagine the weight on Fatima's heart as her worries have grown for those left behind. The military coup exposed the fragility of Myanmar's democracy, well known to ethnic and religious minorities who had already experienced their brutality. When I think of all that has changed in the year and a few months since I was there, I am humbled by how hard it has been to manage the changes last year brought to my own life. Just 2 weeks ago, I learned that 2 activists from Burma have safely arrived in the United States with their families, sponsored by UUSC. As you can imagine, they are much on my mind today. We are hopeful that the support we've provided in the last months has helped them and others find safety in these very dangerous times of the military's coup and violent suppression of protests. Some need to be in hiding right now, and yet there is a new generation who are taking to the streets, carrying the risks for this new day. And there's tremendous hope among many that the new generation of democracy activists are embracing the cause of religious and ethnic minorities like never before. I think of the students from the civic education class we visited, knowing that they care so deeply for their nation's future. I pray for their safety as well. From all of this, and other insights from this year of loss and learning, I am finding that the spring is breaking with a different energy. Gratitude, definitely. The perspective of remembering what is beautiful, precious, essential, but also an awakening to what we could yet hold as beautiful, precious, and essential, and how we together have the power to imagine and create a world that could emerge as new. A world, a humanity that affirms, embraces, sacrifices for the sake of love and liberation. I know that you strive for this vision through your own work for justice. I'm grateful for your connections with UUSC and with the College of Social Justice. And I want to thank each of you who is a member and supporter of UUSC. I know some of you heard from my colleague, Heather, a couple of weeks ago. We hope that UUSC and CSJ are a support to you in your ministry, and that you know that you are a part of our work around the world, from Burma to Kiribati in the South Pacific, to the US border and beyond. New life is struggling to be born. Liberation is stirring in the vision carried in the streets and in the hearts of people who are risking their lives. May their stories, their vision grow in us and change us. May it be so. Amen.
When the sword shall gather round.
breathe the common wind of the earth, and yet some struggle for breath at the hands of hatred. We drink the common water of the earth, and yet for some the waters of earth threaten their homes and their lives. We walk the common paths of the earth, and yet some are imprisoned for being far from home. Our liberation is bound together. May we live each day in a way that honors our common humanity and builds the common good. Go in peace.